The space around Kepler Prime had been quiet for 3 days. Ships from dozens of worlds floated in neat formations around the massive Galactic Council station. The aliens inside were talking about Earth's request to join their group. Most thought. Humans were too young and weak to matter. Then the stars seemed to bend. A hole opened in space itself, dark and hungry. Energy readings spiked across every sensor in the system. On the council station, Admiral Kevin Walsh stood at the main window and watched something impossible happen. The hole grew wider, crackling with power that made his instruments scream. "Warnings! What is that?" asked Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster, staring at her displays in shock. The USS Vengeance came through the hole like a metal mountain. The ship was over 1 kilometer long, its hull black as deep space. Weapon ports lined its sides like rows of angry eyes. Power flowed through its armor in patterns that hurt to look at directly. When it finished emerging from hyperspace, the hole snapped shut with a sound that every being in the system felt in their bones. Captain Marcus Blake stood on the bridge of his ship and smiled. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with calm skill. They had practiced this moment for years. Earth had sent its best ship and its best people to make a point the galaxy would never forget. "Captain," said Commander Lisa Brooks from her tactical station, "we're getting a lot of chatter from the alien ships. They seem upset." Blake looked at the main screen. Dozens of alien vessels were moving away from the Vengeance as fast as their engines could push them. Some were military ships that had seemed proud and strong just moments before. Now they looked like children running from thunder. "Open a channel to the station," Blake said. His voice was steady and calm. On the council station, Admiral Walsh felt his heart hammering in his chest. The human ship was bigger than anything he had ever seen. Its energy readings were off the charts. The weapons it carried could probably destroy his entire station with one shot. "Sir," Amy Foster said, her voice shaking, "they're trying to contact us." "Put them through," Walsh said. The main screen flickered to life. Captain Blake appeared, looking relaxed and professional in his uniform. Behind him, the bridge of the Vengeance hummed with quiet activity. Human officers worked at stations that seemed decades ahead of anything the aliens used. "Admiral Walsh," Blake said with a polite nod. "I am Captain Marcus Blake of the Earth vessel USS Vengeance. We request permission to dock at your station. Ambassador Helen Carter would like to present our credentials to the Galactic Council." Walsh stared at the screen. The human was asking permission like this was a normal diplomatic visit, but nothing about this was normal. The ship outside could probably take on half the Council fleet and win. "Captain Blake," Walsh said carefully, "your ship is quite large. We were expecting a smaller diplomatic vessel." Blake's smile never changed. "We believe in being prepared, Admiral. Earth takes this meeting very seriously." In the council chamber, panic was spreading like fire. The insect-like Zephyrians were clicking their mandibles in distress. The crystal beings called Vortons were pulsing with nervous light. Even the warlike Krell looked worried. Chancellor Vexhai of the Zephyrian swarm studied the tactical reports with growing alarm. The human ship had appeared exactly where it wanted to be. Its hyperspace jump was perfect, showing navigation skills that took most species centuries to develop. But humans had only been in space for decades. "How is this possible?" Vexhai clicked to his aide. "Our intelligence said they were primitives." War Commander Thax of the Krell Empire was asking the same question. His 4 eyes studied the energy readings from the human ship. The weapon signatures alone were enough to make him nervous. The Krell had the strongest military in the galaxy, but this one human ship might be able to match their finest battle cruiser. "Check. Those readings again," Thax growled to his weapons officer. "That cannot be correct." But the readings were correct. The USS Vengeance carried enough firepower to level a planet. Its shields were stronger than anything in the galactic database. Its armor was made from materials that shouldn't exist. And it had arrived without warning, proving that human technology was far beyond what anyone had guessed. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the ship's secondary command center, monitoring the alien reactions. His job was to watch for threats while Blake handled the diplomacy. So far, the aliens were more scared than angry, which was good. But fear could turn dangerous quickly. "Sir," reported Commander Greg Adams, "long-range sensors are picking up fleet movements in 3 different sectors. The aliens are mobilizing." Morrison nodded. They had expected this. When you showed up with the biggest stick in the galaxy, people noticed. The question was whether they would try to break that stick or ask nicely to borrow it. Back on the station, Admiral Walsh was making the hardest decision of his career. The human ship was clearly more advanced than anything the Council had. It could probably destroy the station and everyone on it without breaking a sweat. But the human captain was asking permission to dock, following proper diplomatic protocols. "Grant them docking permission," Walsh said finally. "But keep our shields up and weapons ready." Amy Foster looked at him in surprise. "Sir, their ship is huge. If they try anything, then we're dead anyway," Walsh said quietly. "But I don't think they came here to start a war. If they wanted us destroyed, we'd already be space dust." The docking process took 2 hours. The USS Vengeance was so large that it had to use the station's main cargo bay. Even then, only a small part of the ship could fit inside. The rest stuck out into space like a metal cliff. Ambassador Helen Carter led the human delegation off their ship. She was a tall woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She moved with quiet confidence, as if visiting alien space stations was something she did every day. Behind her walked Captain Blake and a small group of human officers. The aliens watching them were struck by how normal they looked. These were not the primitive savages their intelligence reports had described. These humans wore uniforms that looked more advanced than Council military gear. They carried equipment that hummed with unknown power. They moved like people who knew exactly what they were doing. Dr. Susan Miller, the expedition's scientist, was busy taking notes on everything she saw. The alien technology was interesting, but not as advanced as she had expected. Earth's rapid development had put them ahead in many areas. The other species had been comfortable for too long. They had stopped pushing the boundaries of what was possible. As the human delegation made their way to the council chamber, word was spreading throughout the galaxy. The species that had dismissed Earth's application were now frantically calling. Emergency meetings. Trade routes were being rerouted. Defense fleets were moving to new positions. The balance of power that had kept peace for centuries was suddenly uncertain. Captain Blake walked beside Ambassador Carter and felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Earth had spent decades preparing for this moment. They had studied alien transmissions, learned their languages, and built ships that could stand toe-to-toe with anything the galaxy could throw at them. Now it was time to see if all that preparation would pay off. The corridor they walked through was filled with aliens trying to look casual while they stared at the humans. Some were curious. Others were afraid. A few looked angry. Blake ignored them all and focused on the mission. Earth wanted to join the galactic community, but they would do it as equals, not as junior partners begging for scraps. The USS Vengeance waited outside the station like a patient predator. Its weapons were powered down but ready. Its crew was alert but calm. The ship had delivered its message just by existing. Now it was up to the diplomats to finish what the engineers had started. The Galactic Council chamber was unlike anything on Earth. The room was a perfect sphere, floating in the center of the station. Representatives from 47 different species filled the space, each in their own special area designed for their needs. Some floated in tanks of liquid. Others hung from the ceiling. A few stood on platforms that could move anywhere in the room. Ambassador Helen Carter entered the chamber with quiet dignity. She had studied every species present, learned their customs, and prepared for this moment for years. Behind her, Captain Marcus Blake and Dr. Susan Miller took their places at the human delegation table. The table itself was a marvel of alien engineering, able to adjust its height and shape for any species that might use it. Chancellor Vexhai of the Zephyrian swarm watched the humans with his compound eyes. He had been expecting primitive beings, who would be impressed by the chamber's technology. Instead, the humans looked around with the calm interest of tourists. They were not awed by what they saw. If anything, they seemed to be taking notes. "Honored delegates," Chancellor Vexhai began, his voice translated by the chamber's universal system. "We welcome the human delegation to our council. This is a historic moment." Ambassador Carter stood and bowed slightly to the chamber. "Thank you, Chancellor. Earth is honored to be here. We come seeking friendship and cooperation with all the species of this galaxy." War Commander Thax of the Krell Empire shifted on his platform. His four eyes were fixed not on the human ambassador, but on Captain Blake. The human military officer sat quietly, but Thax could see the warrior beneath the diplomatic smile. This was not a man who would back down from a fight. "Tell us about your species," said Prime Crystal Shard of the Vortan Collective, the crystalline being pulsed with soft light as it spoke. "Our records show that humans only achieved spaceflight recently, yet your ship suggests capabilities far beyond what we expected." Dr. Susan Miller rose to answer. She was Earth's best xenobiologist and had been chosen specifically for her ability to explain complex ideas in simple terms. "My species learns quickly," she said. "When we discovered we were not alone in the universe, we focused all our efforts on reaching the stars. Competition and necessity drove us to advance faster than might seem normal." The chamber buzzed with translated whispers. Many of the aliens found this hard to believe. Most species took thousands of years to develop the technology the humans seemed to have mastered in decades. Captain Blake listened to the discussions and kept his expression neutral. He could not tell them the whole truth. Earth had not just been trying to reach the stars. They had been preparing for the possibility that the stars might reach them first. Every nation on Earth had contributed to the crash program that built the USS Vengeance and her sister ships. They had assumed first contact might not be friendly and had prepared accordingly. Admiral Jake Morrison was monitoring the conversation from the Vengeance. His ship's sensors could pick up every word spoken in the chamber. More importantly, they could monitor the alien ships outside. 3 different fleets were moving toward the Kepler system, but they were still hours away. For now, the humans had time to make their case. "Your application mentions trade agreements," said Speaker Coral of the Aquari Federation. The fish-like being floated in a tank of water that let her participate in the discussions. "What does Earth have to offer the galaxy?" Ambassador Carter smiled. This was the question she had been hoping for. "Earth has many resources and technologies that might interest our new neighbors. We are particularly advanced in areas of metallurgy, energy production, and defensive systems." The mention of defensive systems made several delegates shift uncomfortably. The USS Vengeance floating outside was proof of human defensive capabilities. What other weapons did Earth possess? Dr. Nathan White, Earth's technology officer, stood to address the chamber. "We believe in sharing knowledge for the benefit of all. However, we also believe in maintaining the security of our homeworld. Any technology exchanges would need to be mutual and fair." War Commander Thax leaned forward on his platform. "Your ship carries weapons of significant power. The Krell Empire is curious about your military capabilities." The chamber fell silent. This was the question everyone wanted to ask, but had been afraid to voice. The human ship outside could probably destroy any vessel in the system. How many more ships did Earth have? How advanced were their weapons? Were the humans a threat to galactic peace? Captain Blake rose slowly from his seat. Every eye in the chamber focused on him. He was not the official spokesman for humanity, but he commanded the ship that had shocked the galaxy. His words would carry weight. "The USS Vengeance is a defensive vessel," Blake said carefully. Earth built her to protect our world and our people. We hope never to use her weapons in anger, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. One ship cannot defend an entire world, Thax said. His voice carried the confidence of a warrior who had fought in a dozen battles. Blake's smile was thin and cold. You assume the Vengeance is alone? The words hit the chamber like a physical blow. If Earth had more ships like the Vengeance, the balance of power in the galaxy would shift overnight. The Krell Empire had dominated through superior military technology for centuries. The thought of facing human warships made even Thax uncomfortable. Chancellor Vexhai clicked his mandibles nervously. How many ships does Earth possess? Enough, Blake said simply. Ambassador Carter stepped forward before the military discussion. Could go further. Earth's fleet exists to defend our home and our interests. We have no desire for conquest or expansion. We want to be good neighbors and valuable allies. Prime Crystal Shard pulsed with calculating light. The Vortons were known for their mathematical minds, and Shard was already running projections. If the humans had built one ship like the Vengeance, they could build more. Their technology seemed to advance at an impossible rate. In a few decades, they might surpass every species in the galaxy. What guarantees can you offer that Earth will not become aggressive? Asked Speaker Coral. The Aquari were a peaceful species and feared any disruption to galactic stability. Dr. Susan Miller answered this time. My species has a saying, walk softly but carry a big stick. We prefer peaceful solutions to problems, but we prepare for other possibilities. Earth's history shows that we fight only when we must, but we fight to win when we do. The honesty was refreshing and terrifying at the same time. Most species made grand promises about peace while secretly building weapons. The humans openly admitted they had weapons and were prepared to use them if necessary. Admiral Kevin Walsh watched the proceedings from the station's command center. The human delegation was handling themselves well, but he could see the tension building in the chamber. Fear was starting to override curiosity, and that could lead to dangerous decisions. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster monitored the communication channels between alien ships. The chatter was increasing as news of the human ship spread throughout the galaxy. Some species were calling for immediate action against this new threat. Others were already preparing trade offers. Sir, Amy said quietly, I'm picking up encrypted transmissions from the Krell fleet. They're discussing attack vectors. Walsh felt his blood run cold. If the Krell decided to attack the human ship, the battle would destroy everything in the system. The station held representatives from every major species in the galaxy. A war could start right here. Back in the chamber, Ambassador Carter was presenting Earth's formal application for council membership. The document was thorough and professional, covering everything from trade protocols to military cooperation agreements. But everyone in the room was thinking about the ship outside and what it represented. Captain Blake received a subtle signal from his communication officer. Morrison was reporting increased alien fleet activity. They had expected this, but it was still concerning. If the galaxy decided that Earth was too dangerous to allow into the Council, they might try to eliminate the threat before it could grow. We will need time to consider your application, Chancellor Vexhai said finally. This is an unprecedented situation. The Council must discuss the implications carefully. Ambassador Carter nodded. Of course, Earth is patient. We have waited this long to join the galactic community. We can wait a little longer. As the session ended, delegates began filing out of the chamber. But Blake noticed that many of them were speaking urgently into their communication devices. Word of humanity's arrival was spreading, and the galaxy was starting to react. The USS Vengeance continued to wait outside the station, its presence a constant reminder that the rules of the game had changed. Earth had announced itself to the galaxy not as a supplicant seeking membership, but as a power demanding recognition. The question now was whether the galaxy would accept this new reality or try to fight it. The second day of negotiations had barely begun when the emergency alarms started screaming. Admiral Kevin Walsh rushed to the command center as reports flooded in from the outer system. A group of Krell raiders had attacked a civilian transport near the system's edge. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster pulled up the tactical display. "Sir, it's a Krell warlord named Crux. He's got 6 heavy raiders and he just disabled a Vortan cargo ship. They're demanding tribute." Walsh cursed under his breath. Crux was a rogue commander who had been raiding civilian ships for months. The Krell Empire claimed they couldn't control him, but everyone knew they allowed his attacks as long as he only targeted non-Krell vessels. "What's our response time?" Walsh asked. 40 minutes minimum, Amy replied. "By then the raiders will be gone." On the other side of the system, Captain Ryan Davis received the distress call on his ship, the USS Lightning. The human destroyer had been patrolling the outer reaches, staying far enough away to avoid making the aliens nervous. Now it looked like their caution might cost innocent lives. "Commander Thompson," Davis said to his weapons officer, "plot an intercept course. Maximum speed." Commander Beth Thompson's fingers flew over her console. "Course laid in, Captain. We'll reach the attack site in 8 minutes. Davis nodded. The Lightning wasn't as big as the Vengeance, but she was fast and deadly. Her crew had trained for this exact situation. Pirates and raiders existed in every part of the galaxy, and Earth's ships were designed to stop them. The USS Lightning accelerated toward the battle zone. Her engines pushed her faster than any ship her size should be able to move. The alien raiders were about to get a very unpleasant surprise. Warlord Crux stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched his crews board the Vortan transport. The crystalline beings offered no resistance as usual. They were traitors and philosophers. "Not warriors, easy targets for a real soldier." "How much tribute are they carrying?" Crux asked his lieutenant. "Enough to make this worthwhile," the younger Krell replied. "Rare crystals and processed metals. The Empire will pay well for these materials." Crux nodded with satisfaction. Let the politicians talk about peace and cooperation. Real Krell took what they wanted and kept what they could hold. The galaxy respected strength, not words. His tactical officer suddenly looked up from his console with confusion. "Sir, we have an incoming ship. Small destroyer class. It's moving very fast." "Identification?" Crux demanded. "Unknown design." "Wait, sir, it's human." Crux laughed. The primitive humans had sent one small ship against 6 Krell raiders. This would be amusing. "All ships, prepare to engage the human vessel. Let's show these newcomers how real warriors fight." "Captain." Davis watched the raider formation on his main screen. The Krell ships were powerful, but old-fashioned. They relied on heavy armor and big guns, fighting like battleships from Earth's past. The Lightning was built for a different kind of war. "All hands, battle stations," Davis announced over the ship's communication system. "We have civilians to protect and pirates to stop. Let's show the galaxy what human ships can do." The first exchange of fire lit up space like a deadly fireworks display. The Krell raiders opened up with everything they had, filling space with energy beams and missile trails. It was an impressive display of firepower that should have vaporized the small human destroyer. Instead, the Lightning danced between the attacks like a leaf in the wind. Her point defense systems created a web of defensive fire that destroyed incoming missiles and deflected energy beams. Her pilot, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, flew the ship with impossible skill, dodging attacks that should have been unavoidable. Commander. Thompson returned fire with surgical precision. The Lightning's weapons were smaller than the Krell guns, but far more accurate. Her first shots disabled the raiders' targeting systems. Her second volley took out their engines. In 30 seconds, she had crippled 3 enemy ships without destroying a single one. Warlord Crux stared at his tactical display in shock. Half his fleet was dead in space, and the human ship hadn't even been scratched. How was this possible? All remaining ships, concentrate fire on that destroyer, he roared. Destroy it now! The 3 undamaged raiders poured everything they had at the Lightning. For a moment, space filled with so much destructive energy that the human ship disappeared from view. Crux smiled with savage satisfaction. No ship could survive that much firepower. Then the Lightning emerged from the energy storm, her shields glowing but intact. She had taken hits that would have shattered a Krell battlecruiser, but she was still fighting. Still winning. Captain. Davis studied the enemy formation with calm professionalism. The Raiders were brave but predictable. They fought like they were still living in the past, using tactics that had worked for centuries against conventional opponents. Against human technology and training, they were helpless. "Target their weapon systems," Davis ordered. "Disable, but don't destroy unless they leave us no choice." The Lightning's next attack was a masterpiece of precision gunnery. Her weapons carved through Krell armor like it was paper, destroying gun turrets and missile launchers while leaving life support and engines intact. In under 2 minutes, the remaining Raiders were helpless hulks drifting in space. Crux found himself on a ship that could no longer fight. His weapons were gone. His shields were down. His engines were damaged. The human destroyer floated nearby, its guns trained on his bridge. He had gone from predator to prey in less than 5 minutes. "This is Captain Ryan Davis of the USS Lightning," came a calm voice over the communication system. "Krell vessels, you are ordered to surrender immediately. Any attempt to resist will result in your destruction." The warlord's pride warred with his survival instincts. He was Krell. He did not surrender to anyone, especially not to primitive humans. But the alternative was death, and dead warriors could not fight again another day. "We surrender," Crux said, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. The battle was over, but its effects were just beginning. The USS Lightning had defeated 6 enemy ships without taking significant damage. More importantly, she had done it while following rules of engagement that prioritized capturing enemies over killing them. The galaxy was watching, and the message was clear. Humans were not only powerful, but disciplined. On the Council station, Ambassador Helen Carter watched the tactical replay with Admiral Walsh. The human ship had demonstrated capabilities that should have been impossible. Speed, maneuverability, defensive power, and precision all beyond anything in the Galactic database. "How?" Walsh asked quietly. "How did one small ship defeat an entire Raider squadron?" Carter smiled. "Practice, Admiral. Earth's ships train for this kind of engagement every day. We don't just build better technology, we use it better too, War Commander." Thax studied the same tactical data with growing alarm. The human destroyer had moved like nothing he had ever seen. Its weapons had surgical precision. Its defenses had absorbed attacks that should have been fatal. If this was what humans could do with a small escort ship, what could their battleships accomplish? Captain Blake received the battle report aboard the USS Vengeance and allowed himself a small smile. The Lightning had performed exactly as designed. Captain Davis and his crew had proven that human ships were not just impressive to look at, but deadly in combat. "Send a message to Captain Davis," Blake ordered. "Well done. Return to patrol station, but remain alert. This might not be over." Admiral Jake Morrison was already analyzing the alien response to the battle. Fleet movements throughout the sector were accelerating. Some species seemed impressed by the human victory. Others appeared to be mobilizing for war. "Sir, Commander," Greg Adams reported, "we're detecting major fleet buildups in 4 different sectors. The Krell Empire is moving 3 full battle groups toward the border. The Zephyrians are calling up their reserves." Morrison nodded grimly. The display of human power had accomplished its goal of getting the galaxy's attention. The question now was whether that attention would help or hurt Earth's chances of joining the Council. Dr. Susan Miller was busy analyzing the alien reactions from a different perspective. The battle had revealed human capabilities, but it had also shown human restraint. Captain Davis could have destroyed the Raider ships completely. Instead, he had captured them, preserving the lives of their crews. This was not the behavior of a conquest-minded species. The rescue operation for the Vortan transport was completed within an hour. The Lightning's crew provided medical aid and engineering support to get the damaged ship moving again. The crystalline beings were grateful and impressed by human efficiency and kindness. Prime Crystal Shard received the report from the rescued transport and began new calculations. The humans had saved Vortan lives at considerable risk to themselves. They had shown mercy to defeated enemies. These were not the actions of a typical military power. Perhaps Earth could be trusted after all. Back in the council chamber, the day's session was dominated by discussion of the Lightning's victory. Some delegates praised human restraint and skill. Others worried about the implications of such advanced military technology in the hands of newcomers. The third day brought harder questions. The alien delegates had spent the night reviewing data from the Lightning's battle, and they wanted answers. How had a species so young developed technology so advanced? What other surprises was Earth hiding? Dr. Caroline Baker stood before the assembled council with the weight of history on her shoulders. As Earth's lead scientist, she had been chosen to explain humanity's rapid advancement. The truth was complicated, but she had to make it sound, simple and innocent. "Honored delegates," she began. "My species has always been driven by necessity. When we learned we were not alone in the universe, every nation on Earth united around a single goal: reaching the stars safely." Chancellor Vexhai leaned forward on his platform. "But the speed of your development is unprecedented. Most species take millennia to achieve what you have accomplished in decades." Dr. Baker nodded thoughtfully. "Competition has always pushed humans to excel. When our survival was at stake, we found resources and abilities we never knew we had. Fear can be a powerful motivator. The explanation was true as far as it went, but it didn't tell the whole story. Earth's nations had not just been motivated by wonder at the discovery of alien life. They had been terrified by the possibility that first contact might mean invasion or conquest." Captain Marcus Blake sat quietly in the delegation area and remembered the classified briefings that had led to the Vengeance's construction. Intelligence analysts had studied every alien transmission they could intercept. The galaxy was not a peaceful place. Wars, raids, and conquests were common. Species rose and fell based on their military strength. Earth's leaders had made a decision that shaped everything that followed. They would not wait to be contacted by aliens. They would not assume that first contact would be friendly. They would prepare for the worst and hope for the best. The result was the most intensive military buildup in human history. Admiral Jake Morrison reviewed the classified files in his private quarters aboard the Vengeance. The ship he commanded was not just a diplomatic vessel. She was the culmination of a planetary defense program that had consumed resources from every nation on Earth. Scientists had shared their greatest discoveries. Engineers had pushed the boundaries of the possible. Military leaders had planned for scenarios that kept them awake at night. The USS Vengeance and her sister ships represented humanity's answer to an uncertain galaxy. They were not just weapons, but symbols of a species that refused to be victims. Earth would join the galactic community as equals, or not at all. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Roberts monitored alien communications from the ship's intelligence center. The various species were engaged in frantic diplomatic exchanges, trying to determine how to respond to humanity's emergence. Some wanted to welcome Earth as an ally. Others saw humans as a threat to be eliminated before they became too powerful. "Colonel," reported Sergeant Lisa Wong, "we're intercepting coded transmissions between the Krell Empire and the Zephyrian Swarm. They're discussing joint military action." Roberts frowned as he studied the intercepts. An alliance between the militaristic Krell and the numerous Zephyrians could field enough ships to threaten even Earth's defenses. The situation was becoming more dangerous by the hour. Commander Rachel White managed the Vengeance's communication array from her station on the bridge. She was monitoring hundreds of channels simultaneously, looking for signs of coordinated alien action. The patterns she was seeing worried her. "Captain," she reported. "To Blake, I'm detecting synchronized fleet movements in 7 different sectors. This looks like preparation for major military action." Blake nodded grimly. The display of human power had impressed some aliens and frightened others. Fear often led to poor decisions, and the consequences could be catastrophic for everyone involved. Back in the council chamber, War Commander Thax was asking the questions that everyone wanted answered. Your ship carries weapons of incredible power. Your destroyer defeated 6 of our raiders without suffering damage. How many such vessels does Earth possess? Ambassador Helen Carter had prepared for this question, but the answer was still dangerous. Too little information would make Earth look weak. Too much might provoke a preemptive attack. Earth's fleet is adequate for our defensive needs, she said carefully. We hope never to use our ships in anger, but we are prepared to defend our world and our interests. That is not an answer, Thax pressed. The Council has a right to know what military forces we would be admitting to our organization. Captain Blake rose from his seat. All eyes turned to him as he walked to the center of the chamber. He had been a military officer for 20 years, and he understood the language that warriors spoke. Commander Thax, Blake said formally, Earth's military capabilities are sufficient to ensure our security. We do not threaten any peaceful species, but we will not be threatened either. That should be enough information for any reasonable being. The chamber fell silent. Blake's words carried the quiet confidence of someone who held overwhelming force but chose not to use it. The message was clear. Push too hard, and you might not like what you discover. Dr. Nathan White took advantage of the silence to change the subject. Earth is interested in technological exchange with species that share our values. We have advances in metallurgy, energy production, and defensive systems that could benefit peaceful civilizations. Prime crystal shard pulsed with calculating light. The Vortans were master mathematicians, and Shard had been running projections since the humans arrived. The numbers were sobering. If Earth continued advancing at its current rate, they would surpass every species in the galaxy within a generation. What guarantees can you offer that your technology will not be used for conquest? Shard asked in its crystalline voice. Dr. Susan Miller answered this time. Earth's history shows that we fight only when we must. We prefer trade to war, cooperation to conflict. But we also know that peace is only possible when all sides respect each other's strength. The honesty was both refreshing and unsettling. Most species made grand promises about peaceful intentions while secretly building weapons. The humans admitted they had weapons and were prepared to use them if necessary. Admiral Kevin Walsh watched the proceedings from the station's command center and felt the tension building. The alien fleets moving toward Kepler Prime were still hours away, but their intentions were becoming clear. If the Council rejected Earth's application, there might be an attempt to eliminate the human threat before it could grow. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster monitored the tactical situation with growing alarm. Sir, we're now tracking 12 different battle groups moving toward our position. At their current speed, they'll arrive within 18 hours. Walsh felt his stomach tighten. A battle in the Kepler system would be a disaster for everyone involved. The station held representatives from every major species in the galaxy. If shooting started, the war could spread across known space. On the USS Lightning, Captain Ryan Davis was receiving similar reports. The small destroyer was fast enough to escape if fighting broke out, but Davis had no intention of running. His ship had proven that human vessels could hold their own against alien raiders. Now it might have to prove it against entire fleets. Commander Beth Thompson ran final checks on the Lightning's weapon systems. The battle with Crux's raiders had been a warm-up exercise compared to what might be coming. But she had confidence in her ship and crew. They would give a good account of themselves. Back in the chamber, the debate was intensifying. Speaker Coral of the Aquari Federation expressed the fears that many species shared. The arrival of such powerful newcomers disrupts the balance that has maintained peace for centuries. How can we be sure that Earth will not use its advantages to dominate other worlds? Ambassador Carter's response was measured but firm. Earth seeks partnership, not domination. We want to contribute to galactic civilization, not control it. But we will not accept a subordinate position simply because we are new to the galactic community." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Earth would join the council as equals or not at. The emergency council session began at dawn on the fourth day. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy as delegates took their positions. Outside, alien fleets were gathering at the edge of the system. Everyone knew that the next few hours would determine whether the galaxy would see peace or war. Chancellor Vexhai called the session to order with visible reluctance. The Zephyrian leader had spent the night in urgent communications with allies and enemies alike. The pressure to reject Earth's application was enormous, but so were the potential consequences of such a decision. The Council will now vote on humanity's application for membership, Vexhai announced. Before we proceed, are there any final statements? War Commander Thax rose on his platform. The Krell warrior had made his decision during the long night, and it surprised many of the delegates present. The Krell Empire recognizes strength when we see it. Humans have proven themselves worthy of respect. We support their application. The announcement sent shockwaves through the chamber. The Krell had been expected to oppose Earth's membership out of fear for their own military dominance. Instead, they were choosing to ally with the newcomers rather than fight them. Prime Crystal. Shard pulsed with calculated light as the Vortan Collective announced their position. Mathematical analysis suggests that cooperation with Earth offers better outcomes than conflict. The Vortans support membership. Speaker Coral floated in her tank and spoke for the peaceful Aquari Federation. We have always chosen cooperation over conflict. Earth's restraint in yesterday's battle shows they share our values. The Aquari support membership. One by one, the major powers announced their positions. The galaxy's leaders had spent the night weighing their options and reached the same conclusion. Fighting Earth would be costly and possibly futile. Allying with them offered opportunities that outweighed the risks, but not everyone agreed. The hegemony of worlds, representing dozens of smaller species, demanded the floor. Their speaker was a thin insectoid being named Clith, who had built his career on opposing the major powers. The arrival of humans represents an existential threat to the independence of smaller species, Clith declared. Their technology is too advanced, their expansion too rapid. They will dominate us all if given the chance. The speech was passionate but desperate. Clith and his allies knew they were fighting a losing battle, but they had to try. The alternative was accepting a future where Earth's influence would only grow stronger. Admiral Jake Morrison monitored the debate from the USS Vengeance while keeping one eye on the tactical display. Alien fleets continued to mass at the system's edge, their intentions still unclear. If the vote went badly, those ships might attack within hours. Admiral, Commander Greg Adams reported, long-range sensors are detecting additional fleet movements. The situation is becoming more volatile by the hour. Morrison nodded grimly. The galaxy was balanced on a knife's edge. The wrong decision could trigger a war that would consume entire star systems. Everyone understood the stakes, but fear and pride were powerful motivators. Captain Marcus Blake sat in the human delegation area and watched the debate unfold. 3 days ago, Earth had been an unknown quantity begging for recognition. Now they were the center of galactic attention. Their decision to join or reject the Council, capable of reshaping the balance of power. Ambassador Helen Carter listened to the arguments with professional calm. But inside, she was calculating odds and outcomes. Earth had committed everything to this moment. If the Council rejected their application, humanity would face a galaxy united against them. If they were accepted, Earth would become a major power overnight. Dr. Susan Miller took notes on the alien behavior patterns she was observing. Fear was the dominant emotion in the chamber, but it was being tempered by pragmatism among the major species. The smaller powers were panicking, but their larger neighbors understood the new reality. The debate continued for hours as every species had their say. Some speeches were eloquent appeals for cooperation. Others were fearful warnings about human ambitions. A few were barely disguised threats about what might happen if Earth was admitted or rejected. Captain Ryan Davis waited aboard the USS Lightning as tension filled the space around Kepler Prime. His destroyer was fast enough to escape if fighting started, but Davis had no intention of running. The Lightning had already proven that human ships could hold their own against alien raiders. Now it might have to prove it against entire fleets. Commander Beth Thompson ran final checks on her weapon systems while monitoring the alien fleet positions. The enemy ships were maintaining their distance for now, but that could change quickly. If the Council vote went the wrong way, the Lightning might find herself fighting for Earth's future. Dr. Caroline Baker watched the proceedings and thought about the long road that had brought humanity to this moment. From the first detection of alien signals to the construction of the Vengeance, Earth had prepared for this day with single-minded determination. Now they would learn if that preparation had been enough. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Roberts intercepted fragments of encrypted alien communications and didn't like what he was hearing. Several species were making contingency plans for military action regardless of the vote's outcome. Some wanted to eliminate the human threat before it could grow. Others were positioning themselves to claim Earth's technology if humanity was destroyed. "Colonel," Sergeant Lisa Wong reported, "we're detecting weapons charging on multiple alien vessels. They're preparing for immediate action." Roberts felt his blood run cold. The situation was spiraling toward violence despite everyone's efforts to maintain diplomatic solutions. Once shooting started, it would be almost impossible to stop. Chancellor Vexhai called for the final vote as the sun reached its zenith above the station. The chamber fell silent as delegates prepared to make the most important decision in galactic history. The future of civilization itself might depend on what happened in the next few minutes. All those in favor of admitting Earth to the Galactic Council? Lights began appearing throughout the chamber as species announced their votes. The major powers lit up first, followed by their allies and trading partners. The momentum built as smaller species realized which way the wind was blowing. When the counting was finished, the result was overwhelming. 41 species voted in favor of Earth's admission. Only 6 opposed, mostly members of the hegemony who had little choice but to stand by their earlier positions. "The motion passes," Vexhai announced. "Earth is hereby admitted to the Galactic Council with full membership privileges." The chamber erupted in a mixture of cheers and nervous applause. History had been made, but everyone understood that this was just the beginning. The real work of building relationships and establishing trust would take years. Ambassador Carter rose to address the Council as Earth's first official representative. "Honorable delegates, Earth is honored to join this body. We look forward to working with all of you to build a better future for every species in the galaxy." Captain Blake allowed himself a small smile as he watched the formal ceremonies begin. Earth had achieved something unprecedented. They had entered galactic society not as junior partners, but as equals, who commanded respect through strength tempered by wisdom. Admiral Morrison received word that the alien fleets at the system's edge were standing down. The vote had diffused the immediate crisis, but the long-term implications were still unclear. Earth would now be involved in galactic politics, whether they wanted to be or not. Dr. Nathan White was already fielding inquiries from species interested in technology exchanges. The Vortans wanted to discuss metallurgy advances. The Aquari were curious about human defensive systems. Even the Krell were asking about possible military cooperation. The USS Vengeance continued its patient orbit around the station. No longer a threat, but a promise. Earth had announced itself to the galaxy and earned its place through a combination of advanced technology, diplomatic skill, and carefully controlled demonstrations of power. As the ceremonies concluded and delegates began filing out of the chamber, the galaxy settled into its new reality. Humanity had arrived not as conquerors or supplicants, but as partners who would help shape the future of known space. Captain Blake stood on the bridge of his ship and looked out at the stars with satisfaction. The day that humanity's battleship appeared had indeed made the galaxy hold its breath. Now it was time to help it breathe easier in a universe where Earth's children had finally found their place among the stars. The age of human isolation was over. The age of galactic partnership had begun. And somewhere in the deep black between the stars, other species were watching and wondering what these remarkable newcomers would do next.